And so we get
now you're going to get us in trouble, Nathaniel. Now you're going to have to come back and we're going to have a longer discussion about the man versus male after I do some studying. But I think you are absolutely, I mean, that is just so true. We just lump it like it's one and the same. Right. And you're saying that it's not one and the same.
And that's where we are right now, because we dealt with the maleness and not the man. We dealt with the male and not the gentleman. Mm-hmm. You know, even the gentleman is able to communicate.
So what does it look like with us? Okay, you said that's what we're doing right now. We're dealing with the maleness. What does it look like when we deal with maleness? What does that look like?
We're dealing with it.
Like, for example, give people a picture. Is it clothes? Is it sex? Is it ignoring them? What is that? Does that look like?
No, it is the macho attitude. This is what it's supposed to be, and he has no ability to communicate himself. This is just the male. He is the walking around with the club, and he's going to knock you upside your head and take it.
Oh, we back to caveman then.
All right, isn't that where we are right now?
We really are, aren't we? We really are.
So we equate man with this bravado, and that's just the male part. You know, we all have the negative and positive energy. So as a man, what is our negative and positive energy?
I don't know.
And that's the problem.
I don't know. You know, I was listening. I follow the regular news. You got to be careful with the regular news because you're taking a lot in your spirit. Right. But I stay on top of adult popular culture and current issues or whatever. And there was this gentleman who just beat his live-in girlfriend, son to death. He was like 2 or 3 years old. And he beat him to death because he was crying. And they described how he choked him and he slammed him against the wall. Just all this extra testosterone, you know, like, because, you know, I have a toddler, and the truth is, I'm 40 times bigger than her. Anytime I want to win this battle, it's been won. You know, this is really not an issue.
Right.
Okay, so he knew, you know what I'm saying? He could have really just, you know, held his hands tight and won that fight. But he did all this extra stuff to him. And I thought, wow, this lady felt comfortable enough with a man whose testosterone was that high. Because for your temperament, for your testosterone to run that high, you show that. You know what I'm saying? You show that with the mailman. You're showing that when you go to the theater. You're showing that. This is not anything that just popped out.
Absolutely.
And I said she felt comfortable leaving a child, a helpless little fella, which is a little man, you know, a man becoming.
Exactly. A man in the making.
Right. A man in the making with this guy. And that was amazing to me. And I said, where is the wiring off? And then we're sitting here talking, and you said, okay, the confusion is in man versus
male.
So he's very much a male.
Right. Not a man.
He's not a man.
No. Because he doesn't have that nurturing capacity.
Damn. And that nurturing capacity
comes from your mother.
And that's the part we need to respect.
That's the African concept of man. And that's the reason why it always leads back to the wisdom of the woman. Because
and it really does, doesn't it? You know, I think about, I don't know if you remember, people kind of poke fun at it now, but I thought it was an incredible series, Shaka Zulu.
Yeah.
I mean, and I really could watch it again.
Where was his dad?
He went back to the wisdom of his mother.
Right. Mm-hmm. We all do.
Yeah.
I mean, even in our society.
Actually, my son comes back to me.
Between our grandfather and our grandmother, we love them both. But whom do we talk about the most?
Most times grandma.
Exactly.
Yeah. Most times grandma.
We are a matriarchal society. It's just that we've accepted this bravado, and really what it is it's the male being afraid of being obsolete. I don't give birth. I didn't carry you for 9 months. I mean, I started it. So when my kids came along, they slept on my chest because I needed them.
You needed that bonding.
Exactly. I was afraid that they would be more bonded with their mother than with me.
You know, it's interesting with preemies because they don't get to bond with anybody. Right. They spend their first days or months in the incubator. Right. When and they always encourage breastfeeding. Right. they give the fake breastfeeding jacket to the father as well, so that bonding can happen. So we know scientifically the need for that.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's pretty. I mean, it's beautiful on one hand, but it's scary on the other because I'm seeing a loss of that
because it's not being taught. Because we've accepted, and it's not even Western mentality. Because even when you go to Europe, the Europeans don't teach that.
Well, it's interesting, teaching and teaching.
Right.
Much of, I'm very much a bibliophile. I'll probably be a professional student. I'll probably die in somebody's classroom, whether I'm taking the class or giving it. But nothing has replaced just wisdom.
No.
Just, I used to have an old lady, Miss Taylor, and this was when I was in my 20s, and she, now I know the woman could have killed me. Used to drove this big old broham, and she had this old beer, this Bach, and she would be talking smack and telling me this different stuff. And a lot of the stuff that she shared with me, it was just absolutely priceless. And that was good teaching. It was just good old fashioned, honey. Let me tell you something.
So, what do you see at baby showers? What's a baby shower? Nowadays, it's male and female.
Yeah.
And so I had to explain to the young lady that I had the conversation with back in the day, the reason why it was only for women was because the older women were telling the younger women, this is what you should expect. And this is how you can navigate around that.
Mm-hmm.
So now, and this was part of the reason why the young lady that I was dating and I had broken up was because we don't receive wisdom anymore.
No, we don't. We're very hard-headed.
Exactly.
Very, very, very hard-headed. But Isaiah tells us, I think it's Isaiah that says our people perish for lack of knowledge. Yeah. And my mentee LeBrandon, he says, Miss E, you've been telling me for a while. You keep saying we might end up in a museum. I'm starting to believe it. I said, we're trying to, counter that.
Right.
But there's a great possibility.
So and I always pull guys to the side and ask this question. So you want softness from your girl? I mean, everybody's like, yeah, it's not so much sex, is it? And the maleness in them says yes, and I said no, but you like it when she's holding you, right? Well, yeah, they kind of cower down a little bit, like yeah.
Hate to admit it.
They hate to admit it, right? Because that's that caveman mentality, and so I pose the question: suppose you're softer, would you get more of that softness? Versus, you telling her, this is what you're supposed to do. What about you taking a brush and, brushing her hair just because? And the other thing that I learned was that
now you need to do a workshop.
my mom passed a year ago.
Okay.
And when my oldest son was born, he had a lot of hair, and my mom took a look one day. He was on my bed, and she was like, I gotta have a talk with you. So I'm gonna show you this one time. Next time I see that baby's head, his hair better not be like it is right now. And so my skill improved. And on my mom's deathbed, the thing that I was able to give her the most was that comfort of brushing her hair and doing her hair.
Wow.
Because she couldn't do it herself.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
that softness. I'm still that man.
Mm-hmm. That she planted in you.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I just said workshop. That's beautiful. Because it's so simple.
Right.
We look for all this complexity. We look for I have to pay for this, and I got to come up with that, and I need a team of people to help me. And what you did was just so simple and basic. And actually, when I think back, on my mother's side, the big thing is strokes. People stroke out of here.
Right.
Okay. And her mother had 3 strokes. She died when she was 11. She had 3 strokes, and then finally that last one took her. And she had my mom come to her bedside because my mother was the spirited one, the fighter, the non-back down person. And she told her, she said, Susie, work on your temper. Wow. You need to work on your temper. And at that time, all repasts was in your house. There was a time when you didn't do all that. Literally, everybody came to the house. and so they prepared her. Like that was the same thing. Her father and her brother, that they participated in having her presented in a way where people could come in the room and view her. And so there's a beauty and an intimacy there. That
that's what we're missing.
Yeah, that you can't replace that. That also to me is teaching.
Right.
We don't need to fear death. We have to embrace it. We all owe one, at least.
Right.
And we can be so loving in every stage of our exchange with one another. Absolutely. That's beautiful. But that does have to be planted. It does. Pretty early on.
But also it had a lot to do with that situation before, and me understanding there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. Because, people were walking past and they were looking in, and instantly it's like, no, I'm not a beautician. This is just my mom.
Right.
Even though I kept doing it. But unfortunately, we have that psychosomatic within us that takes us back to that old teaching. Why should I have been, antsy? And then later on, when I left, the lady came and asked my mom, was that your son? That was nice.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But instantly, my first reaction, I'm a man. I'm not.
You got to explain the affection that you're showing.
That's horrible.
It is, and I find that sometimes, not very often, but I've caught my husband doing that. He's very, very affectionate with me, very patient with me, and now you've explained it, like. When other men look at you demonstrating that level of vulnerability, you all feel what?
Weak. Even women. But strange women.
But if you're doing it because you like it, you getting so.
Yeah, but the thing is, society-wise, like I said, all of this comes from society, and so we have not. And I always get flack from this. Define male from man. So someone said, well, if that means spiritual mind, then, yada, yada, yada. And I said, okay, so what does mantra mean? Because I don't expect you to go and look up, the Sanskrit word manas, but what does mantra mean? So the root man means what? Mantra means to protect. Mm-hmm. Protect what? What do you do? Okay, so that's Buddhism. What is that about? You're protecting your essence.
Wow.
So your essence is the spiritual.
So you understood when I said to the gentleman at the circle when he was like, I would think she was boring, and I talk with a lot of women, and they'll try to justify a lot of different behaviors, right? And I mean these are all consensual acts for the most part,
right?
But what nobody sees is that they talk to me because they're depressed,
right? Absolutely,
because they sad, because you.
I've done X, Y, and Z.
And I feel played. Exactly. I feel used.
Right.
And so, I try to explain to them that, okay, it isn't like I've never had the thought or the impulse. It isn't like I don't understand the power of sex and sexuality. And I don't want to be one of those women where, like my goal is like to be like 99 and my husband still like slaps me on the butt.
Right.
That's a real goal.
The problem with us is it's too much TV. And so we don't know that affects our
spirit,
Exactly.
And that's what I was saying. Like, you have to look in the mirror. Right. You have to be okay. Right. You have to. You understand?
Right.
That and nothing can fix it. Like, it's not an accident that the porn industry is full of drugs.
Right. But the problem is what we talk about all the time is elevating ourselves on an intellectual level and having that being our stimulation versus sitting there and watching TV, and after a while we don't even understand that's programming us. And so then everything becomes desensitized, and then we go out and do it not understanding it. And it affects men as well.
No, I know.
Because you're not going to willingly marry that which had you on 10 all the time.
Right.
Because that's not natural. But that's what you want all the time.
Right.
So aren't you creating an environment for yourself to fail?
We're gonna freeze. We at we're winding down. We need to part two this. You see, he started some stuff. He come in so suave and innocent, but he's not. You've been listening to Beyond the Surface Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Wanda J. Evans-Brewer.